The sirens echo through the city. The lights go out. The network dies. For a moment, you wait for someone to fix it, but no one does. The streets fill with noise, confusion, and fear. In that moment, one question cuts through the chaos. How long can you stay before it's too late to leave? In the past few years, the world has become a map of instability. Wars in Europe and the Middle East, rising tension in the Pacific, cyber attacks, blackouts, protests, and internal crises that can freeze entire regions in hours. We've talked before about shelters, bunkers, and how to hold your ground. But there are moments when staying put is no longer the safest choice. This isn't about fear or running away. It's about clarity, about how to think, plan, and move if the place you live becomes unsafe. In this video, we'll break down when to recognize that it's time to leave, how to plan your route, what to take, and where to go. Because real preparedness isn't about living in panic, it's about living with awareness. If you want clear, practical analysis for an uncertain world, subscribe to SafetyZone. Cities are built on rhythm. Lights, movement, supply, communication, everything flows in patterns we barely notice. But when one of those patterns breaks, everything else follows. A few hours without power or fuel, and the chain reaction begins. Trucks stop, shelves empty, ATMs freeze. It doesn't take a bomb to paralyze a modern society, just the silence of systems that stop answering. You might picture this in a big city, but it doesn't only happen there. Smaller towns and suburbs depend on the same fragile chains: energy, food, fuel, communication, just with fewer backups when things break. When deliveries stop reaching the edge of the map, rural communities feel the impact first. It starts quietly. The first blackout feels temporary. Then the cell network dies. Water pressure drops. The gas station shuts down. The grocery store says cash only, then closes early. You check your phone for updates, but the news is contradictory. Officials say it's under control, yet nothing comes back online. People start buying, arguing, moving. It doesn't matter whether it's a cyber attack, a regional protest, or a military emergency, the pattern is the same: speed, confusion, and loss of trust. A place can look stable at noon and feel unrecognizable by nightfall. Every failed signal adds weight to the same question: is this still control, or has control already slipped away? The point of no return isn't when the power fails, it's when confidence does. When the system feels absent and the silence stretches too long, staying becomes a risk for anyone, anywhere. So ask yourself, would you recognize the moment when normal life ends and survival begins? Once control starts to fade, the hardest choice isn't what to pack, it's when to move. Most people wait too long, not because they're reckless, but because denial feels safer than action. Leaving means admitting the situation is real, and that's something the human mind resists until it's almost too late. Leaving too early means giving up comfort, work, resources, and maybe returning to normal life a day later, embarrassed for having overreacted. Leaving too late means being trapped in gridlock, or locked down, or facing shortages that turn small problems into survival threats. The balance between those two extremes is razor thin, and it's different for everyone. That's why every serious emergency planner, from governments to rescue teams, uses thresholds, what they call triggers. Personal versions of the same idea can work for you. For example, how many days could you last without power before food spoils and heat fails? How many miles of traffic before you realize the exit routes are closing? How many conflicting messages before you stop trusting that the system still has control? You can decide those limits now, calmly, while everything works. Because once panic spreads, the ability to make clear choices disappears fast. You don't rise to the level of your expectations. You fall to the level of your preparation. And here's the truth: clarity doesn't appear in the crisis. It's built long before it starts. Once you've understood when staying becomes a risk, the next question is, If you had to move, would you know where to go? The line between safety and chaos is often drawn by one decision, and that decision only feels clear if you've already made it before the crisis starts. You can't build a plan in the middle of panic. When the power goes out, when gas stations run dry, and the roads fill with cars that aren't moving, every option begins to shrink. That's why the time to plan is now, while everything still works, while your phone still has signal, and while the streets still feel normal. Start with geography, the real kind, not the digital one. Apps will fail long before paper does. Get to know the physical shape of the place where you live. Look at the main highways, but also the smaller roads that connect towns, the bridges that could become choke points, the tunnels that might close first, and the stretches of open ground that can turn into bottlenecks. If you live near a coastline, learn which directions flood fastest. If you live near a river, understand how far a surge could reach. If you live near mountains, know where rock slides or narrow passes could trap traffic. For people in cities, the hardest part isn't distance, it's congestion. Every major city has arteries that clog within minutes. Study them now. Look for side streets, service roads, or even bike paths that could help you bypass main routes. Walk them, drive them, memorize the landmarks that could still be visible in a blackout. For suburban or rural residents, the risks are different but just as real. A single broken bridge or a line of stalled trucks can isolate entire towns. Rural roads often have fewer gas stations and longer gaps between help and hazard. What looks peaceful on a map can become a dead end if you haven't checked where it actually leads. Have at least 2 destinations, one primary, one backup. The first should be reachable within a few hours, even under stress. Maybe a relative's home, a small motel, or a rural community center outside population centers. The second should be further away, something reachable by less obvious routes if the first path closes. That could be a lake area, a farm, or even a state park with access to shelter and water. Every professional risk planner calls this redundancy. You should too. And don't rely on navigation apps. GPS is one of the first systems to fail when networks go down or when too many people try to use it at once. Print satellite images of your region. Mark gas stations, small towns, rail lines, and rivers. Add notes for refueling spots, alternate exits, and places where you could rest without drawing attention. These few pieces of paper could become the most valuable part of your plan. Then think about fuel and time. How far can you drive on one tank with traffic? Do you have a small reserve stored safely at home or in your car? If not, do you know where you could get it once panic buying begins? Every evacuation follows the same pattern. First comes confusion, then movement, then paralysis. The ones who move during confusion always get the furthest. If you're not driving, the same principles apply. Plan what you could carry, how long it would take to walk to your fallback point, and what routes are safer at night versus during the day. For many people, walking might be the only viable option if fuel runs out or vehicles are blocked. The goal isn't speed, it's direction. And remember, these aren't abstract exercises. They're the habits of people who survive well. The best time to plan an escape route is when you don't need it yet, when the lights are on, when the internet still works, when calm allows logic to function. Because when the city slows down and the signals fade, the only direction left will be the one you already chose. Have you ever traced your route on a real map? Not as a theory, but as a line you could follow in the dark? Knowing where to go is only half the equation. The other half is what you take with you and what you leave behind. The so-called go bag isn't a symbol of fear or paranoia. It's a practical tool, a small insurance policy that buys you 72 hours of autonomy when the world around you slows down. Forget the movie versions filled with weapons and gadgets. A real go bag is built for endurance, not for fantasy. Water first, at least enough for a day of movement, with a filter or purification tablets to stretch it further. Lightweight, high-calorie food that doesn't require cooking. A flashlight and spare batteries, a small first aid kit, essential medication, copies of your IDs and cash in small bills. Every item should earn its place. The more you carry, the the slower you move. The goal isn't to survive forever. It's to move efficiently, think clearly, and reach your next safe point without depending on anyone else. If you live in a city, your bag should be compact and discreet, something that blends in, not something that draws attention. If you live in a rural area, think more in terms of endurance, extra layers, power banks, tools for quick repairs. Families will need a split approach, distribute the weight, double the essentials, and make sure everyone knows what's inside, especially children. There's also the temptation to overpack, to throw in everything just in case. But the truth is simple. Mobility is survival. A heavy bag becomes a trap. Test it. Carry it for an hour, then remove what you didn't use. Redundancy is valuable, but excess can slow you down more than any obstacle on the road. The purpose isn't quantity, it's continuity. You're not trying to bring your life with you. You're trying to preserve the ability to keep moving forward. Because when everything else stops, momentum is your greatest resource. You can have the perfect plan, the right bag, the clearest route, but without a destination, all you're doing is running. Every plan needs an endpoint. A temporary shelter, a family home, a rural area within reach, even a community center outside the main grid. Each has strengths and trade-offs. The key is balance. Distance buys safety, but too much distance can make safety unreachable. A place too close might face the same risks you're escaping. A place too far might become impossible to reach once roads close or fuel runs out. That's why the best fallback locations share three traits: accessibility, sustainability, and discretion. Accessibility means you can reach it even under pressure, with limited fuel, partial communication, or alternate routes. Sustainability means you can stay there longer than a night. Access to water, some kind of shelter, proximity to smaller towns or farms where supplies can still circulate. And discretion, the most overlooked factor, means it's not obvious. The safest place is the one nobody else rushes to. If you have relatives or trusted friends in less populated areas, discuss it now before you ever need it. A prearranged understanding, a spare room, a garage, a shared plan, removes uncertainty when time matters most. If that's not an option, study your region for public spaces that can turn into safe zones, small-town motels, rural schools, community halls, religious centers. During any large-scale disruption, those are often the first to open their doors and the last to close them. And remember, evacuation doesn't always mean isolation. Sometimes the strongest move is to integrate, to connect with small local networks that already know how to adapt. In every crisis, the most resilient people aren't the ones who stockpiled the most. They're the ones who built trust before the lights went out. Because survival isn't just about escape. It's about knowing where you can stop, catch your breath, and rebuild your options before the next step. Every plan, no matter how detailed, collapses in isolation. In every crisis, the most fragile person isn't the one with the least gear. It's the one with no one to call. Preparation isn't just about stockpiling or mapping routes. It's about connection, a network of trust that still functions when everything else stops. After you've chosen where to go, the next question is, who knows your plan? In the first 48 hours of any large-scale disruption, communication systems are often the first to fail. Cell towers go dark, power grids falter, information becomes rumor. In that silence, people don't vanish, they disconnect. And that's when confusion becomes danger. Share your plan with a few people you trust completely, not with everyone, but enough that someone knows where you'll be and when to expect a message. Families should have rally points, 2 physical locations, one near and one far. Friends or neighbors can form small groups, agreeing on simple protocols: a note under a door, a mark on a mailbox, a fixed meeting spot if communication breaks. These small details turn panic into coordination. If you live alone, your network can still exist. A nearby friend, a coworker who lives out of town, even an online community of like-minded people can make a real difference when the rest of the world stalls. The point is not to depend on others for survival, but to synchronize with them for clarity. Because every major emergency study reaches the same conclusion. People who plan together make fewer mistakes, react faster, and recover sooner. Isolation breeds fear. Cooperation builds resilience. So before the next blackout or storm or moment of uncertainty, ask yourself, who could find you if everything went silent for 2 days? In the end, every form of preparation leads back to one truth. Survival begins in the mind. You can have supplies, maps, even allies, but if you can't think clearly under pressure, none of it lasts. Clarity isn't fear, it's focus. It's the ability to look at a world that's shaking and still see the next step. Leaving doesn't mean giving up. It means accepting that strength is not about staying where you are, but knowing when to move. History is full of people who waited too long because they believed familiarity meant safety. But comfort and security are not the same thing. Comfort is what holds you still. Security is what lets you move when it's time. Every army, every strategist, every rescue team works on one principle. No position is permanent. The ground you stand on today might not hold tomorrow. And that's not a reason for panic. It's a reason for readiness. Because the goal isn't to predict every crisis. It's to be capable in any of them. Real preparedness isn't about fear of collapse. It's about respect for reality. The more you understand how fragile systems are, the more calmly you can act when they start to break. You don't need to control the storm. You only need to avoid standing still when it hits. Lucidity is strength, not the loud kind, but the kind that keeps you grounded when everyone else is frozen. And in a world that can change overnight, that calm awareness, the decision to stay alert without living in fear, is what truly separates panic from preparedness. If this video made you think, that's the point. Preparedness isn't about panic, it's about perspective. Every week, we break down how global events and local realities connect, and how you can stay one step ahead without losing calm or reason. So tell us in the comments, what part of preparedness do you want us to explore next? Evacuation routes, communication plans, or how to prepare your home to stay put safely? Your questions shape the next videos. And if you want clear, sober analysis in a world full of noise, subscribe to SafetyZone. Because awareness is not fear, it's control.